Welcome to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Well, hello there again. This is Dr. Barry Schwank with the Christian Veterinary Mission. I'm a veterinarian, a pastor, and your host for this podcast, Two Roads Crossing, where we explore the intersection of faith and vocation. For me, vet school was a long time ago, and for many of you listening, it may also have been. But it's good to reflect back on those very formative years. And for those that are listening, that maybe you're interested in vet school, or maybe you're just coming into vet school, it might be great to have a little bit of context and understand what you may have gotten yourself into. So today I am joined by Dr. Cora Farley, recent graduate of the Kansas State University Go Wildcats. And I'm talking, this is, I think, a great opportunity for us just to visit a little bit about your time at K-State. Because that wasn't too long ago, was it? It seems like
it was not. It's been, I think, almost a month now. I graduated on May 12th and I left 2 days later.
So it does. It seems like only yesterday.
It really does. It's very surreal, especially when we're walking around at work and they're calling me doctor. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me.
You turn around, you're looking to see who they're talking to, and
yep.
So you are currently at in an internship at Rood & Riddle in Lexington. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm one of 5 ambulatory interns, and I just finished my first week.
The first week is always the hardest. Is that what they say? I don't know. maybe the fact that you've survived this far is just a good thing.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a rough sort of learning process because you're learning, how to be an intern and how to be a doctor. And
right.
Every practice and university is a little bit different. I think breeding season is going to be a little bit more difficult than this week, just because you go from, 0 to 100 when bulls start dropping. Right now we're on the tail end of it. So, it's not too bad, just kind of a learning curve of learning how to be a doctor and an intern. But if this was the hardest week of my internship, that would be phenomenal.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath.
Maybe they're getting you warmed up for the good stuff. Then that's what it is. If you can make it, if you can make it in Manhattan, you can make it anywhere. That's right. Right. Well, so you're not originally from Kansas, though, right?
I'm not. I'm from Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Most people know it as Amish Country, USA.
Aha. And so what was it that took you from Pennsylvania all the way to Manhattan?
So I don't have anything against Penn State, but I had been up at main campus so often for 4-H and FFA that I knew I didn't want to go there. I wanted something different. I looked at Cornell University and they didn't like me. I looked at a really small agricultural university about 2 hours from home, and that was too small and too close to home. And K-State came across my radar, and they have a phenomenal agricultural program. They have the vet school there. I was able to do an equine studies minor. They have numerous extracurricular opportunities, whether it be like the horse judging team or different clubs on campus. And then, of course, there's the food at Derby Dining Center. And it was a beautiful campus. It was an amazing college visit. And so I came home from the visit and I think I wore purple for a week. Like, I was sold on K-State. It was like God had opened the door and been like, here is where you are meant to be.
It's amazing when that happens. And for a lot of folks, especially as they're maybe considering what universities to attend coming out of high school, or even what vet school, maybe they're already in at university, but looking at vet schools, that visit is so important, isn't it?
It is. I was told by people that had gone ahead of me and gone to college that when you're looking for a college, you'll know when you find the right one because it'll feel right. It'll feel like home, kind of like finding the person you're going to marry. I haven't done that yet. But I can definitely say that when I went for the visit, it was like everything was falling into place. It felt right. I didn't have any concerns. I was super excited. it should be an easy decision. If you have to think about it a lot, you may not have found the right place yet. But at the same time, out of state tuition, it's 18 hours from home. Those are some big things to think about too. But it should be an easy decision. You should go to your college or your vet school, and you should say, I feel like I can be successful here. I feel like this can be home for X amount of years. I've
been married for 20 years. I don't know if I should admit that when I went to K-State, it was the same as when I first met my wife. I don't know if I should say that or not, but it was very similar. You're right. It is very true. And it's funny how God does that, right? With a lot, if you're anything like me, I weigh all the options and do all the pros and cons and measure things and measure them twice and all that. And then there's something that God does when you're in the exact right place that you need to be. Did when you headed from Pennsylvania to Kansas, were you, for the context, especially for folks that are listening, were you already a believer? Were you a Christian at that time? And how much did that have anything to do with your time or your decision-making process?
Yeah, so I grew up in a Christian home. My mom sort of drug me to Sunday school and church every Sunday. And then when I got to high school, I got a job on a dairy farm. So I was milking Sunday mornings, kind of stopped going to church. I got involved in a couple of questionable relationships. And I had a best friend at the time that kind of pointed out that they were really not healthy. And she was not shy about being like, you're sinning. And so she started inviting me to go to youth group with her and to go to church. And she really encouraged me to kind of get back into my faith and start making better decisions in my life. And so all of this was going on at the same time that I was sort of looking for a college. And so looking back, I like to say that God led me to K-State, and it was by his hand that I ended up there. Because I really didn't have anywhere to go to college. Like Cornell had already told me no. And like, I just didn't really have any other options. And then, K-State came onto the radar, and it was like everything sort of fell into place. And so I was a believer when I arrived in Manhattan, and then through student ministries and my RA, who was a believer, my faith really took off, and I really started becoming a more dedicated believer when I came to college. And actually, I got rebaptized my freshman year, as I was raised United Methodist, and they always do like the little like christening baptism when you're a baby. And I went to this non-denominational church that I'd found on Google, like the first or second Sunday I was in Manhattan. And a couple weeks later, they had like the full dunk baptism. And I don't entirely remember the event, but I remember being like, this is kind of weird. But then also remember feeling like God wanted me to go forward and do this. And so I ended up going forward. I took the guy next to me that I had been like sitting with for a couple of weeks. We didn't know each other very well, and I don't even remember his name, but he went forward with me, and like I got baptized. And I like to think of it as that was God's way of being like, you're here, you're in a new place, let's cleanse you and, have a clean slate that I could grow from then the rest of my time there.
Oh, that's a really important thing. When you step into university out of high school, there is that transitional phase where you're now discovering your own faith. Like your faith is no longer that of your family or your parents. You gotta find your own space. So that sounds like you were able to do that. Was it something that as you came to Manhattan, were you thinking, oh, I'm going to Manhattan and I'm going to do something different? Or is it just something that kind of naturally evolved?
I wanted something different when I came to Manhattan. Like it was a top priority that I wanted to find a church, and I wanted to get involved in like, I guess it's not really a youth group anymore when you're over 18, like a young adults group. Mm-hmm. It was definitely a priority for me. Like I had two priorities when I went to Manhattan. One was to ultimately get into vet school, and the other was find a church and grow in your faith. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that I really had decided that when I accepted my college invitation to K-State. I think it was I arrived and I was like, all right, we're going to do things differently now that we're here.
Well, and it's cool that, even from high school, that that God gave you a friend who was loving and caring and bold enough to have a conversation with you. And then it sounded like, as you came to K-State, did God then continue to put people in your path to kind of help you? I mean, you've got this poor kid who was sitting next to you, who may or may not have been wanting to get baptized. I don't know, but where did God? How did God work in your undergrad? Did He put more people in your path to help you with that formation?
Absolutely. So I was very lucky. He put me on a dorm floor, and the RA was very strong in his faith, and he had an incredible story himself. And so he was on campus ministries, really encouraged sharing the gospel and like talking about faith within the dorms. And so he was also not shy about being like, hey, are you a believer? Do you want to come to this Bible study I'm having? He also went to a student ministry on Thursday nights. And so I got involved in both of those. And then he could see that like I was hungry and willing to like learn and go and do. And so he encouraged me to do like a couple of training programs that the student ministries had. And we had lots of late night talks about faith and going forward. He was very missions minded and encouraged me to take a class called Perspectives. So I took a Perspectives class spring of 2016. And then that summer, I ended up going overseas and spent the summer in Asia with one of the student ministries. And it was a phenomenal experience. And through each of those experiences, I met more people and I was able to build this sort of community of believers at school. And I obviously had, my roommate and, dorm mates that weren't believers or weren't strong believers. But my RA was definitely extremely influential. And then, of course, the team that I went overseas with was extremely influential as well. But God definitely provided for me in my early undergraduate years with resources to help me grow. And then probably about end of my junior year, I got really, really depressed, started seeing a counselor, began taking, medication. And surprisingly, I like to think that counseling, even if it's not directly through church, has been brought through the Lord. Because even though my counselor was not connected with a church and I don't know if he was really a believer himself, but he was very willing to sort of talk through, my concerns about like, why has God done this to me? Like, why has he let me fall in this pit of despair? And so even just having him as a counselor for 2 years and being able to sort of discuss some of those thoughts. And, he encouraged me to talk to people at church and to, to read the Bible since I think that that's, God's word and his plans and everything else. And so God provided immensely for me in undergrad, from my RA to the team I went overseas with, and dozens of friends in between that were able to lead me and support me even in some of my darkest times.
And I appreciate you sharing that, because it's something that for a long time the church really hasn't done as adequate of a job as we could be doing in supporting and encouraging people as we face anxiety and depression. And I think that something, I can't remember who I was talking to here recently, we were just talking about some generational differences, and I really do appreciate kind of the progress that that is being made on those inroads. Hey there. Is that who's the cat that's there? We go. Hi.
In his little bow tie.
I love the bow tie of the cat. For those that are listening, it's a gorgeous orange cat peeking in on the camera. But I appreciate you sharing that, because it's something that and especially for those that are entering university, or even thinking about heading to vet school, that we really have to take our mental health very seriously. And there are going to be times where we all walk through these very difficult periods in our lives. And I really do appreciate how God intercedes in our lives through a wide variety of people. and hopefully if we can learn how to have those conversations, hopefully we can support each other in a better way. When
Yeah.
you so from from there, so you said that was your junior year. How was that transition then going from your undergrad into vet school? Did that from a mental health standpoint, even was that a good step, or was that a difficult step for you?
Oh my gosh, it was horrendous. It was really, really bad. I think I actually became more depressed when I started vet school.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, I was so depressed my first year. I missed so much class and I never went to any social events. And I felt like no one in my class liked me or even cared that I was there. And I mean, I wasn't, an outstanding academic student. And it was really hard. And I'm very open about all of this, but there was definitely times where I, struggled with suicide ideation. And thank God K-State has a phenomenal counseling program in their vet school. And my counselor in vet school actually is a Christian herself, which was really cool. And I visited her office many times. So it was not an easy transition at all. I really, really struggled. But I also, I actually had a friend who was not a Christian, that she was a year ahead of me, and she really struggled with depression in vet school as well. And she was actually really able to help encourage me through a lot of that essentially social anxiety that was, making the depression worse, that, just feeling like I didn't belong, and that, I wasn't good enough to be here, and that everybody saw that and was like, well, she's not going to make it. And so she was really essential in, helping me get through a lot of that and, ultimately get to second year.
Imposter syndrome is a real thing.
It is so real.
And it's funny because, and again, for so long, like what we don't realize in this, not to go into any Christian-y stuff, but when we don't bring things into the light, it's really easy for the darkness to kind of overwhelm us, and to think that I'm the only one. Right? In a class of 100 at K-State, we think I'm the only one that's feeling like this, and yet that sentiment is probably a lot more prevalent than what we let on. And so being able it's everywhere. We all have it. We think at any moment in time that someone's going to figure out that we really don't belong here. We don't know enough. We're not good enough. We don't fit in, no matter what it is. And we all put up these walls and develop these mechanisms to try to protect ourselves. And yet a lot of that it's easy for that stuff to fall away and to hide and mask the hurt that's really hiding behind all of those things. So did you, as you were walking through that in vet school, because it sounded like your counselor in undergrad was pretty open about you talking with folks at your church. How was that in vet school? Did you find a good Christian community at K-State in vet school to help you? And did you plug into that very much, or how did that balance? Because that's always a tough thing in vet school, is how do I balance being a student 100% of the time, but also maintaining good mental health, good spiritual health? So how did that work for you?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, very similar to mental health, the sort of the Christian faith, I feel like, hides behind a curtain a lot. And then especially in today's society, you slap that badge on and say, like, I'm a Christian publicly, and it like almost makes social anxiety worse. So that was really difficult as well. But I had actually learned about Christian veterinary mission and the fellowship at the vet school when I was a senior, because of my interest in missions. I got plugged in with one of the surgery doctors that's really involved with the organization. And so I did start attending CVF. And like, even though they only had like one monthly meeting, and like I didn't know a lot of the people very well because they were in other classes or whatever, I did actually make a couple of good friends. I even dated someone from CVF for a short period of time. And it was just nice to know that like there was people there. There was people in the vet school that loved God and loves God's children enough that even though like they don't know me very well, if I was like bawling my eyes out in the hallway, they would be like, hey, let's go take a seat and, talk over here. Like they were just willing to sort of listen and, open up a little bit more about, their experience and their struggles in vet school. Because our faith sort of connected us and like provided that sort of trust foundation for us to open up a little bit more. So that was really crucial, just being able to have that Christian community. Because when I got super depressed, I actually kind of stopped going to church. And so I was really struggling to find a community. And I actually was able to find that through CVF, even though I didn't really have like a home church anymore.
Right. And you can mention Dr. Renberg by name. I do it all the time. Although I still question some of the grades he gave me. But it was his first year when he taught me, so it's okay. I've forgiven
Dr.
him.
Renberg is still there. He is still, making surgery scary every day for the fourth years, but he's awesome. I was an on-call surgery tech and worked with him a lot, even before I got to fourth year. And he's an amazing dude, a little intimidating.
Yes.
But him and his bow ties are great.
Well, that's exactly right. Those bow ties. But I'm going to get myself in trouble if I'm not careful. I'll get an email. Well, and that's a good thing to mention too, because from a time perspective, right? Being in vet school is such a massive time commitment. And it really is hard to find, connections outside, and to know that there are CVF groups that, for better or worse, maybe it's like-minded people that are also struggling with a lot of the same things. That's really important, especially for folks that may be considering going into vet school, or even folks that are professionals right now, finding vet students to help mentor, because there are a lot of vet students that are struggling with this issue, and need that voice of experience to kind of help navigate through that. If your big takeaway from vet school, as far as faith is concerned, do you feel like vet school was a faith building opportunity, or did you feel like you were still kind of lost in that pit for most of the time?
No, vet school was definitely a faith building opportunity. And surprisingly, my mental health actually got significantly better throughout vet school. I'm still on medication. Probably not going to change that during my internship. And I still, utilize counseling when necessary. But I think having that foundation of my faith and having a faith community that I could go to, and the way God was able to provide resources through K-State, whether that was at, low cost healthcare at the student health center or counseling, whatever it was. I think if I hadn't been at K-State and I hadn't been a Christian and I didn't have the faith community that I was provided there, I don't know that I would have made it through the program.
Well, hopefully that is a note of encouragement for anyone who may be going through that right now, maybe to hear their own story kind of echoed in your story, or for folks that are considering going into vet school, maybe to come into it with both eyes open, as we say, to know that it's okay. You're going to face trials and tribulations. You're going to go through some dark periods. But you're not alone. And hopefully if you will see God kind of surround you with the right people, and you will come to understand just how much he loves and cares about us, even through those dark valleys. So Dr. Farley, I appreciate you sharing some of your story with us today. Hopefully we can connect at another time, because I love talking to another K-Stater. And I know for a fact, for everyone listening, that Cora's just shared from her heart. And I hope that as you do listen to her story, hopefully there are some things that you can connect with and will ring true in your own life, to help you understand how we can live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you are blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.